Okay, now we continue with the session, and in this part we'd like to discuss about the complexity of Inspire and how we are dealing with the complexity of Inspire. And the first presentation is on co-reference data from Sonja from BKG. Sonja, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sonja. So we've heard a lot about EuroGeographics projects, and co-reference data is one of those. So just a short agenda, let's look at what is the co-reference data set. Some of you probably heard enough about that, but others not. We will have a look at the prototype that we are developing at the moment, and from developing this prototype, with learning first lessons. It's definitely not the end of the line, but just the first lessons to learn there, and then what comes next after doing the prototype. So what is the co-reference data set? What was the initial idea? The idea was to create a reference data set at master level of detail for all of Europe, and for that to use the Inspire or health data provided by the MCAs. But the idea was to have a simple to use data set, to have data set and not a service, to have real data set. In order to keep it easy, we limited the content. We only had 3 themes, at least for the moment, and only what we thought were basic attribute information. For that purpose, we also had to simplify the data model. And additional to the Inspire requirements, we also had the idea that the data should, of course, be harmonized at the international boundaries. And to achieve all this, we've heard it, I think, 2 or 3 times this morning. EuroGeographics decided to have the center of data production, at least for the moment. So what's the first step to simplify the whole idea? The whole exercise was to limit themes. So for the first step, we only took the hydrography and the transport network themes, and again restricting that to only water courses, standing water, and the net water boundary for the hydrography, and for the transport network we already looked at the road network, railways, and the railway stations. So this was our first step that we are taking now. The scale, we call it the multi-scale approach, something between 10,000 and 50,000, whatever the MCAs can deliver. So there's no real strict rule what has to be delivered, but whatever is available. The same thing applies to the positional accuracy. You sort of take whatever the MCAs have available at that scale. The coverage, of course, at least the EU, the 28 or 27, whatever, EU countries would be first priority, but again, take whatever countries want to deliver data, we're happy to include them. The second step after reducing the content was to flatten the data model. We've just heard some things about that from Dominique. We relied, for deciding what to do to flatten the data model, we relied on those discussions that had taken place during the ELF project. So we didn't invent the wheel again, we just took what the discussion was during the ELF project. And as Dominique said, for this case we're talking about, those rules could be applied and they were okay from our point of view. As Dominique said, you cannot have one simple flattening model that serves all projects and all ideas, but for us CRD data, that was fine. So just go through quickly, what were those flattening procedures that we took. The first difficult part always is if properties are defined as extra data types. For CRD, we just put them as attribute because we have set very simple content only. That was no real problem. Either we had a list of attributes, or if we, in other cases, we just concatenated the values into one single attribute. The second thing is the complicated transport network with links and link sequence and link set and whatever. For CRD, we just use links, nothing else. And if we need any attributes from the other data types, we just put them as attribute right to the link. In Inspire, linear referencing, that's possible in Inspire. We said, well, we don't want to run it for CRD, and we will just put the transport properties directly to the links. Up to now, nobody has delivered any data using linear referencing, so we haven't had to deal with that problem up to now. Value multiplicity, we've already talked about that. We, for CRD, we decided to have just 0 or 1, except, of course, for the geographical names. That's they're listed in an extra table, so they can be more than 1. And for the different geometric types that are possible in some feature types, for CRD, we decided to just, for the watercourse, we have lines and areas, we just split them up to separate features, and or just to decide to just keep one. Like for standing water, there are no point standing waters now in CRD, it's just the surface ones. Keeping all that in mind, it gives us a very simple data model. Only those connected, those feature types that have a name, they are connected to the geographical name table, but everything else is just simple tables. As I said, we have the centralized production as another option to make it a data set that is easier to use. At the moment, it's done by us at BKG. The first idea was maybe we can collect the data directly from the WFS services, from the Inspire or ELF services, but of course we've already heard this morning, that's quite difficult for many reasons. So the next idea was EuroGeographics asked the NMCAs, could you please deliver Inspire directly to us? Not via some download service or something, but the pure Inspire data could be delivered to Germany. And then some countries said, well, could you perhaps provide the CRD data model to us, then we can fill it in because we have some additional data somewhere else that's not in the Inspire, and so we would like to deliver more than we have in our Inspire data. So we have the additional option that the NMCAs can deliver CRD data directly to us, and they have to do the transformation from their Inspire data themselves, but they of course have the option to add additional information that is hidden in some other data set, in some other national data set. So in the end, we had a process that the data is delivered to us whatever way the NMCA wants to do it, either directly in Inspire or already in the CRD data model. We're doing some quality checking, only very simple checks, because we rely on what the NMCAs have done for their Inspire data. They should be good. Then, of course, we have the edge matching. That is quite a big task. At the moment, we're using the edge matching tool that was developed for ERM and in ELF. It's a semi-automatic tool, so it's still some manual work needed. For this version, we are not providing the international boundary for CRD, but of course we need it for the edge matching. So we will use the boundary internally, but we will not deliver it. But we, of course, will deliver the connecting features that are produced through this edge matching tool, so that NMCAs that are willing to do the edge matching themselves, they can, of course, use those and perhaps for the next version deliver an updated set of connecting features, so the edge matching tool could use those for the next version. Then, of course, BTJ have to finally assemble all countries together, do the documentation and the metadata. Up to now, 19 countries have delivered data. It's the green one. Yeah, Poland's just delivered this data, so maybe. Germany's still a bit cold, so you're fine. That's the, as of, I think, end of last week. I don't know if anyone has delivered data on Monday. I have to see when I come back, but this is last week. I've tried to do some statistics on what we've already achieved and what we can see there. From those 19 countries that have delivered data, only 8 has delivered real Inspire, nothing else. That's only 8. Another 7 have delivered CRD data. They already did the transformation themselves from their Inspire or whatever source to the CRD model. And 4 have done something in between. That's neither really the one nor the other. It's halfway through the process, I would say. We were surprised to see that some countries could not deliver the surface water course. One country couldn't deliver the railway fee, but there are railways in that country, I know. So it's not for Cyprus or Iceland, there is no railway, so they cannot deliver any. That's clear. In this case, there are railways. And the other surprise was that many attributes were empty. We, as I said at the beginning, we thought we only asked for basic attributes. And I know there are many other discussions about how to define what are the basics and what should be there in the core data set. We sort of had no time to wait for the end of this discussion, so we had a pragmatic approach and said, okay, we think we need for roads, we need some number, we need some kind of hierarchy, and we need some kind of width, number of lanes or real width or something. Nothing out of the way. It's what we thought. It's just the easy ones that should normally be in national data sets at that scale. Some more statistics. I haven't come around to doing statistics for all the deliveries, so this is just for these 10 countries. You don't have to read all it. The impression is just everything that's red is empty. So there are just a few attributes that are delivered by most countries. I think there are hardly any that are delivered by all. This is the hydro, this is the transport theme. Yeah, quite disappointing, I would really say. But yeah, that's what it looks at the moment for those 10 countries. I have to complete those statistics for all the countries that deliver data, but I think 10 is a good starting point. What are we doing at the moment? We are creating a prototype with the 3 countries, Austria, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. We've done the quality checking and some corrections. We've done the edge matching, and that's where we sort of learned the first lessons that I'll come back to later. So just a quick look at the prototype. This is the hydro that looks pretty homogeneous. With roads, we get those density problems that we had talked about yesterday, that in Slovakia there are far less roads than in the other countries. Railway looks okay, so that's, but of course these harmonization problems cannot really be addressed in this first version of CRD. They will of course be something that we will have to talk about for maintenance, and of course we will report that back to countries, but of course this is nothing that can be solved in this first version, but it's, yeah, I think it helps to see the problem, not to just talk about it. Going further in, this gray line in the middle of the international boundary, it looks a lot better going further in. Here we have the boundary directly underneath the river in the middle. Yeah, here we have the Bratislava at the top, so that's, it of course explains the difference in the density of the roads. What have we learned in doing this first half year of CRD? The first one thing we had to learn is that accessing the data via the WFS is difficult for many reasons, for technical reasons, but also because most of them are in national language, especially if you have to register somewhere or whatever, it's national language. And somebody said yesterday you have to translate all those, the whole page with Google Translate to find the right button to press where you can download the data, so that's yeah, quite difficult. Downloading of whole countries is not possible, as Sonja said, because there are restrictions for many services. I think Cyprus was the only country that I could download as a whole country data set, but it's quite small. And I found that the connections are, some at least for some countries, are very unstable. They work today, but they won't work tomorrow. And maybe the day after they're okay again. So it's quite difficult to, they work this morning, but they're not going to work this afternoon, so it's quite difficult to retrieve data from those. So that's why we decided together with EuroGeographics that it's better that to ask the NSCAs to deliver the data directly, or to provide some simple version of download. What did we learn? What did we learn about the data? What we thought was just the basic content is definitely not the basic content. Either countries have other sources for those attributes missing, then that's of course would be nice to have them in Inspire data if they're available. Not all themes or geometry types were available. Where I think where are those? Watercourse surfaces, they definitely must be somewhere in the national database. And of course, as I've shown you the many attributes that are missing, it's that's quite sad, I think, because most should be really there. It's nothing exotic that we're asking for. The data quality, we were surprised that even some very simple checks still produced errors, where I would have expected those they were just really to be really sure that the data has only simple geometry, nothing complicated, and or no gaps between adjoining watercourse areas. So that shouldn't be there in the national data as well. It's nothing extra for European countries. But of course we will report back those errors we found, and hopefully they can be fixed in the source. The edge matching has been the task we've been doing at the end now. two main problems. The neighboring countries don't use the same international boundary. That, of course, stresses the importance of having one central database that includes all the international boundaries that EuroGeographic is still building, and I think it's not completed for all of Europe as far as I know. But that, of course, is sort of the main thing for the X matching. And of course, the countries have to use those international boundaries that they deliver to EuroGeographics also for their national data, otherwise it's no use. And in those cases we had, for the prototype now, we had some overlapping features, especially watercourse surface features at the international boundary, because for boundary watercourses, the whole river was delivered and not just the part belonging to the country. So that causes quite a lot of problems because those features don't fit to the international boundary, so you can not just cut them off, because then you get holes. So it produces quite a lot of manual work. As it is nearly Christmas, I put down some wishes for the future. We've also talked about that. It's really important for those using more than one country. If you're just inside one country, that's not a problem. But for those pan-European things, we need more content, more harmonized content, not just putting there something to fulfill the Inspire requirements. We have to talk about what really should be the core content. If those simple attributes that we are asking for are not the core content, we'll have to see what is the core content, what all the NCAs can agree on. It would be nice if the countries did the X matching themselves, because I think they have their own responsibility to do that, and they have advantages from doing that, so it's not really the idea to do it centrally. And of course, some internet pages in English, or at least for the registration for the WFS or for the Inspire services, would be nice if they're in English. But of course, we've already said that it's easier to communicate requirements like that if you have a real use case in front of you. And so with CRD, we have exactly this real use case. So I'm quite, I think that in future we will can solve those problems if the NMCAs really see this is the use case and this we're doing it for this reason. So then the attributes, I think, will come along because the information is there, I'm sure. Just the last slide, what comes next? We've finished the prototype. We're now working on the final product. This will be ready at the end of April next year, including all the countries that have delivered data up to them. Of course, then we have to, because this is really sort of, we're learning while we're doing it. We have to evaluate the production process. Is the data delivery, can it be improved somehow? Do we have to change things? Do we have to change things in the production process? Are there any new requirements or feedback from users? And of course, now we have only focused on hydro and transportation, but of course, additional things of interest, also additional coverage is always welcome. Anybody who wants to contribute. And of course, we have to think about how we're going to update and maintain those things we've already included. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sonja. Yeah, I think we have a few questions. So, sorry, Julian was the first.
Yeah, in fact, I have 6 questions, but I selected only 2 of them. The first one is about the updating process. So, of course, you are working more on compiling the initial data set, but I think we should also consider from now, from the design of the prototype, how this data set is going to be updated in the future. And I think it should be encouraged to adopt from the beginning incremental update practices to ensure that every time you need an update of the data set, you don't redo the whole work of matching the edges and so on. The question is, are there some plans regarding the update? And my other question is about, of course, the access and the usage conditions of the future project. If there are already some discussion on that, and how we will be able to access it. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll answer question 1 and Sonja will answer question 2. Yes, we're thinking about maintenance, but we've not really decided on what we're going to do. Well, of course, the incremental update would be the first choice. We have to see if the NMCAs can really do that. We have not, we haven't come to any conclusion on that, but it's definitely the next thing we have to think about, how this will be maintained. And yeah, but nothing definitely has been decided yet.
Yeah, I think that on the second question, we consider this CRD as a part of this improved infrastructure of ELS fitting Quinn, and actually by prototyping where to move with ELS, we like to make the framework for maintenance of pan-European data, gathering the contribution from individual data providers and managing the further products of CRD by versioning, and also the either incremental updates or change detection tool could be amended. So as well as with the edge matching, we like to create a framework where the national data not necessarily need to be changed, but the edge matching could be done on the central tool. So like, and if we maintain the definitive connecting features centrally, then we'll be able to quickly run the edge matching tool for sticking data together. So those have been considering, but as the first work, what we like to learn actually, the amount of work harvesting the data, the issues on the specification, the cost, maintaining the data. So those have been the mainly emphasized as an objective for EKG to do this first version.
Okay, a question related to the organizational stuff. If you have taken into account that it's not always the responsibility of the National Mapping Agency to provide, for example, the watercourse data, that they might be not the ones to cooperate in every country. For example, in Finland, it's now the responsibility of the Finnish Environment Institute, and we have provided the WFS services. We have the atom feed for the watercourse link. So we are kind of the contact point in this case, because our data is the best quality in this domain. We used to be a hydrological institute, and we are working towards integrating our data in the mapping agency data, because they are aware that we have the best data sets, and we are trying to integrate these two. But at the moment, we are responsible. So I'm just, how are you taking these organizational issues into account in this work? That was my question.
The idea was that, of course, for EuroGeographics, the NMCAs are the first point of contact, that the NMCAs ask their national part if they are not responsible for the data we're asking for, because as EuroGeographics, you do not really know who is responsible for what theme in which country. So the idea was to ask the NMCAs, and that they ask other institutions in their country to cooperate and to provide the data if they're not responsible themselves. I don't know if that happened in your case, but that was the general idea.
Yeah. But I can provide you with the links to Finnish data, because I saw that it was missing.
Yes.
We have services.
Yes.
Thank you. The last questions.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, two quick questions actually. Or maybe the second one is for later, I don't know. But first of all, thanks for the presentation. I think it's a very valuable, very interesting work you do. I think we need to talk more about this. One thing is, and that's actually my question, how can we avoid the mapping agencies and other data providers at national level, how can we avoid them being confused about all these different requests? I mean, you ask for data, we ask for data. I mean, I don't know what role EuroGeographics could play to make it more, to clarify, and that actually we try to do more or less exactly the same. We are looking for the same data. So that's one question, maybe something we may need to consider later today or another day, I don't know. But I mean, that's at least one thing I can see that and also now this question about how you can maintain the data in the future. You say that in certain cases, member states say, okay, now we would not like you to get the Inspire data, we would like you to keep something else. I mean, again, what would be the impact when you are going to maintain this data set in the future? Okay, the question is then, in the interest of time, is the final product you expect to have available April next year? Will it be openly available? Is that the basic principle that we're talking about, openly available data?
Delegate that to yourself.
For the time being, no, we don't promise to make it open product. So, but this initiation of this CRD was actually the response to demands for using the so-called hard bones in Greenland cover. So, and then the consultation with the pan-European stakeholders demonstrated that this type of data is needed not only for Greenland cover, but also for some other pan-European users. So we decided to invest on this first version, so making product available, but the dissemination terms needs still to be defined. So if, for example, we would get a financial support from Commission on covering the cost for producing the data and maintaining the data, then the product might become open. But for the time being, unfortunately, we are facing cost to be covered somehow. So and first we'd like to understand what the size of the cost, what efforts required, and the second we would like to find the partnership model with the European Commission in the first instance on how this data could be used. Certainly we are inspired that data would be used. So and the variety and specification, the first attempt was that make inspired data available, content make available. Many people say the content is king, so we like that the content will become available. If user demands more than Inspire has in the specification, then it's our role to fulfill this demand. So from the other side, if we see that 0 attributes are coming from Inspire data, that means that national Inspire data doesn't have this attribute, so it's not demanded by user. So again, it's probably something to think. So that maybe the requirement is probably too high, or maybe not so important for users. There's no data at national level.
So thank you very much for Sonja and all, and now I ask